welcome. Hope you're having a great afternoon. Welcome to Better Than Ever Live, wherever you're watching or wherever you're listening. Hope you're making today your masterpiece. On today's show, we're going to talk about a study that shows that less bedroom light leads to better overall health. We're going to talk about air pollution increasing your risk of early death, the link between oxidative stress, shortened telomeres, and aging, a balance test that predicts longevity, why optimistic women live longer, and how the length of your fingers, and specifically a couple of fingers, predicts your longevity. I'm Dr. David Geier, double board certified orthopedic surgeon, sports medicine specialist, media medical expert. I help you feel and perform your best regardless of age, injury, or medical history. Please understand, I am not giving you medical advice in this show. Just like all my videos, this is meant for general information and educational purposes only. If you have comments or questions about any of the studies we talk about in today's show, in this live stream, please leave those in the chat. I'd love for you to give your first name and where you're located along with your comment and question. Big Fat Tuna, hello to you as well. Jamie, it is good to see you. I am doing very, very well. Excited to be here. But yes, if you if you have comments, leave those in the chat. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, leave your comments, where you normally do for that. And remember, if you have a question about orthopedics or injuries, that kind of thing, join us tomorrow at noon for Ask Dr. Geier Live. That is the one place where I answer those questions. That's always a lot of fun too. Lots and lots of orthopedic questions that you all have. All right, first we're going to talk about bedroom light and potentially how it affects your health. We know that keeping your room as dark as absolutely possible is very, very helpful for getting a good night's sleep. But it also may lower your odds of decreasing your risk, lowering your odds of 3 major health problems. This is a new study that was published in the journal Sleep out of Northwestern's Center for Circadian and Sleep Medicine. That's in Chicago. What the researchers at Northwestern did, they took more than 550 participants that were a part of this Chicago Healthy Aging study. They were between the ages of 63 and 84, and they wore these devices that measured the amount of light in their bedrooms, and they wore them for over a week. And what they found out, older men and women who used either night lights in their rooms or they left their TV, smartphone, or tablet on in the room while they were going to sleep and while they were asleep, they were more likely to be obese, they were more likely to have high blood pressure, and more likely to have diabetes compared with adults who were not exposed to any light at night. Now, it's true, this doesn't prove that having those lights on while you're sleeping causes obesity, causes diabetes, causes high blood pressure, but there's some sort of link. In fact, the researcher said it's possible it's the other way around. Maybe obesity, diabetes, and high blood pressure actually prompt people to sleep with the light on. I'm not exactly sure that I would understand that link. Why would being obese make any difference as to whether you wanted the light on more than other people? But they said that's certainly possible. But it's very, very clear that even a small amount of light in your room at night is not necessarily a good thing, and it can be harmful. For years, I fell asleep with the TV on and just wondered why my sleep wasn't. I mean, it wasn't good for a lot of reasons, not just that. But that was one of the things I got rid of, and yeah, it definitely helps with your sleep. But what we think, or what the researchers, and I agree with this, think the link between light in your bedroom at night and bad health, where it could come from, is that light disrupts your circadian rhythms and your circadian clock. And that is extremely important, having optimal circadian rhythms to preventing disease and having better physical performance. Light suppresses melatonin. Our melatonin levels are very high at night, 3 a.m.-ish, when it's completely dark in your room, essentially. When it's dark, melatonin goes up. When it's light, melatonin goes down. That's why one of the reasons you're not sleepy as often during the day. And a decrease in melatonin is associated with a lot of health problems. It's a very, very, very strong anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. And so keeping light in your room at night reduces your melatonin. That's why if you ever get a melatonin test, it's a salivary test you take 3 times during the day, and it's really high at, like I say, 3 in the morning. And that's one of the times you're supposed to wake up and spit into this little test tube. But if it's really low, one of the things you ask is, well, maybe that person's melatonin level is low. It's certainly possible. Or they forgot and turned their light on to do the test, which then makes the readings artificially low. So you need to keep your bedroom light to an absolute minimum. Obviously, don't turn lights on. If you have to have a night light for safety, if you have to get up in the middle of the night and just feel like you need one, make it a very dim night light and put it close to the floor, preferably as far away from the bed as possible. Also, try to get an amber or red or orange light. It's less stimulating than a white or even a blue light. Try to avoid white and blue lights at all costs, or at least keep them very, very far away from the bed. If you have outdoor light that gets in through the windows, like what you're seeing behind me, use blackout shades, or maybe even consider wearing an eye mask. Gurpreet, it's good to see you. It was not actually as busy today as it could be. I think a lot of people are taking the 4th of July weekend or week off with the holiday falling on a Monday. So it's steady, but next week is really busy. So, but always excited to be here. All right, air pollution, something that knock on, I don't really have wood in front of me, but I would knock on wood. We don't really deal with air pollution too badly here in Charleston, but a lot of the big cities, I know it's a lot worse. Well, there's a new study that showed, this is really simple, I'm not going to get too much into it, but that air pollution increases your risk of early death. And basically, above certain levels of air pollution increases your risk of premature death 20%, increases your risk of dying from cardiovascular disease 17%. Really scary numbers. This was published in the journal PLOS ONE, study out of NYU and Mount Sinai medical schools, and they collected personal health data and environmental health data from over 50,000 residents of a poor village town in northeast Iran. And we know that high blood pressure, diabetes, smoking is predictive of early death and death from cardiovascular disease. But this study shows that pollution is as well. It increases your risk, especially of heart attack and stroke. So for people watching this, the key is to try to avoid that as much as you can. You know how I'm a big fan of exercising outdoors and things like that. There is some thought that for a lot of the benefit you get from the exercise, you lose a little bit of that if you're exposed to a lot of air pollution on those long runs or walks or bikes or whatever. Some people don't get to choose where they live, but if you have the ability to kind of get away from that air pollution, maybe one good reason to do that. All right, let's talk about aging. And I've talked a little bit about this before, shortened telomeres and oxidative stress. There's a new study that shows that telomeres are shortened by oxidative stress, and that correlates with aging. This was a study out of India published in the journal Rejuvenation Research. Now, let me backtrack a little bit before I explain what they found. Telomeres are the caps at the end of the chromosome. They're made of just short sequences of DNA. Every time, and they're not replicated with the normal DNA polymerase like the rest of the chromosome is. And so every time the cell divides, those telomeres get a little bit shorter. Once you get sort of areas, they're basically the protective parts of the DNA, and they protect DNA from damage. So as those telomeres get shortened, there's less and less ability to repair the DNA. As the cells continue to divide after those telomeres are gone, then the cell's DNA gets damaged. I hope that makes a little bit of sense. But the length of those protective caps, the length of the telomere, has been thought to be a good biomarker of aging because it's been shown in some studies to predict survival and longevity. Now, oxidative stress, what we mean by that is that's where we have an imbalance of what we call reactive oxygen species, maybe reactive nitrogen species that build up in cells and build up in tissues due to all kinds of different things. And then we lose the ability to detoxify those with antioxidants. It can be things like inflammation, chronic inflammation that I talk about all the time, air pollution, radiation, heavy metals, and then just normal stress and wear and tear on our bodies throughout the course of the day. Oxidative stress is one of the major harms to our health and why antioxidants are so important. So what these researchers did is they took over 100 people between the ages of 20 and 77, and what they found is that telomeres declined in length with age. We've seen that before. but telomere length also had a lot of a significant correlation to what's called ferric reducing ability of plasma, and which is a cardiovascular marker, and reduced glutathione. Those are both markers of oxidative stress. So it's looking more and more like we've got to get oxidative stress under control. Healthy diet, exercise, potentially nutrient supplements that are antioxidants to lower their effects on telomeres, harming telomeres, shortening telomeres, which helps us age faster. All right, last few are kind of fun. I want to talk about them real quick, and then I will take questions. Rainier's, good to see you. Happy to have you here. So there was a test, this got a lot of attention a week ago or so maybe. There's a test of balance that can predict how likely it is you're going to die in the next 10 years. And basically, you're twice as likely to die in the next decade if you can't do this. And that is very simple. If you're not able to balance on one foot for 10 seconds, basically, if you can do that, it points to a longer life expectancy. There's a study out of Brazil published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine. They took over 1,700 people between the ages of 51 and 75, asked all of them, let's see if I can do this while I'm talking, to stand on one leg for 10 seconds without holding on to anything for support. I'm at a standing desk, so I am standing. And what they found out is those people 51 to 74, about 20% of them couldn't do that, even for 10 seconds. And then they looked at the 80% that could and the 10% or the 20% that couldn't. And the risk of dying in the next 10 years for the people who could not stand on one leg for 10 seconds without supporting, reaching out and grabbing something, was almost 2 times higher, 1.84 times higher if they failed the test compared to people who were able to do it, who passed the test. This is a very simple test. You could do it in a doctor's office very, very quickly. If you wanted to work on your balance, and I'll be the first to tell you, my balance is not great. If you have me do yoga, all the balance stuff I really struggle with, but this is relatively easy to work on. Probably the easiest one that you may have heard before, when you're brushing your teeth every night, balance on one leg, maybe halfway through after you do the top teeth, maybe then switch to the other leg when you're doing the bottom teeth, but just do it then. It's harder than you think because you're trying to do something with your hands while you're balancing, but that will work your balance. All right, a new study came out. I was just talking about this with somebody the other day. Apparently, optimistic women live longer. Being more optimistic is associated with a longer lifespan and living past age 90 in women, and it's across racial groups, across ethnic groups. This was a study out of Harvard's public health school. It was published in the Journal of the American Geriatric Society. They took over almost 160,000 people that were postmenopausal women in the U.S. as part of a much larger study. These were people between the ages of 50 and 1979, way back in the late 1990s, and then followed them for 26 years. The 25% of those 160,000 postmenopausal women, the 25% that were the most optimistic, they lived over 5% longer. They had a 10% greater chance of living past age 90 than did the 25% who are least optimistic. Now, the question gets to why would that be the case? And I don't have an answer to that. Is it possible that the more optimistic you are, the more likely you are to take good care of your health, to exercise, to eat well? Or is it the reverse of that? People that eat well, exercise, sleep better, practice mindfulness, they're more likely to feel good, and that makes them more optimistic. I don't know, but being optimistic clearly seems to be related to living longer. So if you're trying to do things to lengthen your telomeres and reduce oxidative stress to live longer, maybe you're doing some of the things David Sinclair talks about with NAD, with cold, with resveratrol, with rapamycin, maybe finding a way to become a more optimistic person would do it. And then the last thing I've got for you, I love this, was a study published in the American Journal of Human Biology showing that the length of your fingers may actually predict how long you lived. And what these researchers did is basically compared the length of 2 fingers in 3 groups of people. You've heard of the blue zones, where they took different parts of the world that tended to have a lot of people that lived to 100 years old. Well, this was similar. They took, and I'm probably not even going to be able to say these, but Eastern Europeans, Akbajians, Azerbaijanians, and Georgians, all 3 considered to be longevity populations. They tend to live very long. And 1 non-longevity population, the Russians. And then what they did is they compared the finger length ratio in the 3 groups that tend to live long and the 3 groups, or in the Russians who don't. And what they were looking at is the ratio between the index finger and the ring finger, basically. And while you're listening to this, look at your hand and see if your index finger is longer than your ring finger, or if the ring finger is longer than the index finger. But basically, they looked at, they classified them into type 1, type 2, type 3 based on index finger was longer, they were equal, or the ring finger was longer. And what they found out is that having an index finger longer than your ring finger was negatively associated with longevity, meaning you didn't live as long if your index finger was longer. In the longevity populations, the Azerbaijanis, the Georgians, they had many, many, many times higher people that the ring finger was longer than the group that tended to live shorter. So what that suggests, at least, is having an index finger that's shorter than your ring finger might help you live longer. I don't know. I don't necessarily know what to make of that, honestly. I think it's interesting. I don't know that I read too much into that. Mine, the ring finger's longer, so hey, maybe I don't need to worry about telomeres. Maybe I don't need to worry about being optimistic. I have the longer ring finger. I don't know, that I just thought it was interesting. All right, if you have any comments about any of those, leave those in the chat. I will take those comments for a few more minutes. While I'm doing that, if you like these types of videos and information about health, wellness, exercise, nutrition, anti-aging, longevity, mental health, all this kind of stuff, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, drdavidgeier.com YouTube.com/Dr. David Geier. That's where I am everywhere on social media, but ring the bell to be notified when I'm on live, when I start a new live stream, or when I release a new video, and definitely follow me all of those places. Also, if you would like to see me formally as a patient, and I get a lot of requests to do that because I do lots of things that aren't just surgery, physical therapy, and cortisone. A lot of different options to help people heal without surgery. I would love to help. Again, I'm a double board certified orthopedic surgeon. If you want to do that, go into the description of this video. It has my website, drdavidgeier.com. You can go to that. There's a work with me page, contact page, that you fill out all the information, and we work with you to get you here to Charleston, South Carolina, which you will love, and we can help see you. I'd love to help that way. If you have an orthopedic question, join us tomorrow for Ask Dr. Geier Live at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. I will stay as long as you have questions and answer them. Again, it's not medical advice, but it helps you understand the injuries, and then you can go to your orthopedic surgeon and say, hey, can I try this instead, or whatever the case may be. So join us tomorrow, as we do most Friday afternoons at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, for Ask Dr. Geier Live. Thank you so much for joining us. I will see you right back here next Thursday for Better Than Ever Live, and I hope to see some of you tomorrow afternoon. Have a great rest of your night. Take care.